You right? Oh,
That was my uncle.
Oh, keep that in. That's a good start. Welcome back.
Welcome back. It's been a day.
It has.
It's just the time at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah.
We did already start this and it messed up. So we're going to briefly just run over what we already talked about.
Yes.
We were basically saying, is it going to be called Fitility?
Yeah.
Fitility podcast, Fitility YouTube channel. Speaking of which, make sure you are following us, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and be sure to leave us a rating too, please. Thank you very much. Yeah, whether that's going to be continued to be our name, it felt so right at the time. But we're leaning into like us as a couple and us as a family. So it feels like, is it too businessy? Is it an accurate representation of us as a couple and a family? I don't know. It's a work in progress, right?
Yeah, I think we love a bit of admin on the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we want to get it right because we had an idea of sort of what we wanted it to be. And then as we've started, which I think is really important, like to just start, because we have thought about doing a podcast for years and then we've thought about this business for over a year.
Episode 4, baby.
And yeah, and I think that you can have like analysis paralysis and we could have, come up with the best logo, come up with the best name, this, that, and the other, and then just procrastinated until, and then waiting to do it and waiting to be perfect. It's even like giving out advice, especially when it comes to nutrition. Like, I'm not qualified yet. However, I have a massive interest in it and I'm learning on the go.
Mm-hmm.
It would be easy for me to sit here and just go, do you know what? Let's wait until I'm confident. Like, that day's never going to come until I actually put myself out there. And then we're never really going to know we know that the kind of people want to help. And I think you can talk about that if you want to, but it's like, you have to start. You have to make a start, and I think this is going to be just a process where we like fine tune it. Even just doing the podcast, like, we don't really know exactly how we want it to be. We just want to know that we want to do it, and then we just go from there. But in terms of the kind of people we want to help, like, it's families, and that's what we were talking about earlier, about what kind of family means to us.
Mm.
Don't you want to expand on that, Nick?
We were kind of discussing that family doesn't necessarily mean to have children, because prior to us having Jax through IVF, which obviously took years, we had been together for 13 years, married for 3 at the time. And I felt like you were my family. I felt like we were a family together. And to have children didn't necessarily mean, oh, that's when we became a family. Like, did our situation change because we had a child? My status with you as a family unit didn't change, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I don't know whether everybody sees it that way, but yeah, to me, helping families, couples, whether they're going through trying to conceive at whatever stage that is, or prepping for that, whether you're going through fertility treatment, whether you're pregnant, whether you're postpartum, whether your kids are 20, we've all gone through a stage of being fertile and having fertility thoughts, even though we might not always think about it. And we want to help families at whatever stage that they are at as a family. We want to, be able to help you. We are a family. We've got children. We're a husband and wife. We can give a really unique perspective on perhaps your situation, and those are the clients we want to help, the people that want to be helped by like-minded people.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I know you just said that we've all gone through stages of being fertile. Like, I don't know what you meant exactly by that. Like,
just as in, like, fertility to me is like a stage of your life, is it not? And like, whether you're fertile or infertile, you assume fertility is going to work for you at some stage, whether,
Right, okay.
you know, like you go through, I suppose it's just your adulthood really, isn't it? Where we're thinking about contraceptives, whether we're thinking about starting a family, you know, up until perhaps menopause, really, whether you have children in that phase of your life prior to that or not. Yeah, I wanted to like play on the word fertility for fertility, because I feel like it covers such a huge range of things, and I feel like the infertility community use the word fertility the most, but it doesn't always specifically just cover that group of people, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, that's true. That is true. I just, it's just interesting.
I don't know if they've ever told you that.
What?
As to why I feel that way about the name.
No, I think that's interesting. It's good that you've explained it because it actually almost solidifies it a little bit more. And I think like getting that across to people, because even like you've explained that to me, and I'm meant to be like,
Welcome to my brain, everyone.
yeah. It's a wild place to be. It's important to try and like explain to people what we want to try and do, and that we're learning as well. Even though like we want to come across as an authority on certain subjects, which I think is important, especially when it comes to the nutrition side of things. Like you want someone there that's knowledgeable, that has integrity, and I'm going to be bringing that. And I think that having that sort of, I don't know, like sort of spelling out what we want to try and do from what you've just described there, I think is important. And on the subject of admin, you've got like a new part of the podcast you want to
Oh, yeah.
start.
So last week we kind of just did a bit of a, so how's your week been? As a catch up, because we are finding at the moment that we have no time for each other to have a catch up, whatever. So to kind of minimize that down, but also kind of cover what we've been going through as a family this week, I want to do a peek and a pit and a goal for the week ahead. So what's been your best moment of the last week since the last podcast we recorded? What has been your kind of low of the week, and what you would like to achieve in the following 7 days coming?
By the next time we record.
By the next time we record, yeah. And then we'll kind of reflect upon that in the next one and see whether you feel like you achieved that.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. So yeah, I think I'll start with my pit.
Okay.
So the low point for me was on my way driving to the residential this weekend, like just the anxiety that I felt. I kind of felt like generally when I know I'm doing something new, I do get like a build-up of anxiety. And whenever you ask me about it, I'm like, I'm a bit nervous. Whereas I actually felt quite relaxed going into the weekend. Like I just felt like it's what I want to do. It's what it's why I'm trying to do all these things. Like putting myself in these situations is important for like growth. Yeah, like the journey there, like it was just over an hour, but I just felt quite anxious the whole way there, and it kind of like built and built and built, and it just that was like my low point. But then my high point was actually being there and meeting people that are on my course, learning a new skill, like my first actual physical skill in the nutrition world.
Do you want to expand upon that?
Yeah, so just like briefly, it's like skin fold measurements. So there's like 8 skin fold measurements that I can take. Then you can add all those numbers together to give a total value. Then you measure again, sort of, at a set period of time, maybe 8, 12 weeks, depending on the client. And it's just like a really great way of tracking body composition instead of the scale weight. Yeah, so I thought it was like fascinating to learn that. Yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. So that was the best part, like the highlight, I guess, of the week. Just knowing that I can do that, because obviously I started feeling like rubbish, but knowing that I pushed myself into a new situation and I came out the other side with something that's really valuable that I think is going to help a lot of people. So I was happy.
We still
about
need to do that on me, actually. We'll record that as a video.
Yes.
I think that'll be really, really cool for the YouTube channel.
Yeah, definitely. Just to try and like further expand it because I've probably not explained it amazingly well there. But it is a really good tool for tracking body composition. And then, sorry, carry on.
Oh, I was just going to say that that's going to be really good for people that are breastfeeding, which is actually what we're going to discuss this week. But obviously, I'm breastfeeding at the moment, and my scale weight is kind of fluctuating. I'm finding it's really hard to get a consistent kind of stage of my day to kind of weigh in at, because some days I got milk in there, some days I don't have milk in there, sometimes they're like more engorged than others, and I think that does reflect upon the scale, along with things like, have I had a poo, have I had a drink of water or a coffee that morning, whatever, what am I wearing. The boob changes, like the heaviness is really reflective in the scale weight. So the skin fold measurements, I'd be really intrigued to see how that changes, because perhaps the scale weight won't always match with what's actually going on composition wise. And that, at the end of the day, the composition is the most important thing, not the number that I'm seeing on the scale.
Yeah, so there's obviously there's loads of metrics that you can use,
Yeah.
scale weight, your clothes, how they feel, or you can measure, which is actually part of this skin fold. You do take 3 measurements.
I really
4
hate
measurements
the
as
word
well.
skin fold.
That's what it is, skin fold measurement, because you are pinching the skin. But what I think is great about it is that you're taught how to locate certain points on the body for you, like skeleton, essentially. So you're finding those points, those bone points, those exact points, because they're never going to change, which then offers consistency.
Yeah.
And I'll take the measurement 3 times, and then as long as there's no more than a 10% either way, then it's accurate. And that's a really good way of knowing, rather than a lot of people that might have had skin fold measurements done before, by someone who isn't trained the way I was. They're just grabbing and it's oh yeah, I'll just grab you there, and that's where I'm going to do it, and I'm just going to put the tape here. Whereas mine was, I'm marking you up, I'm literally drawing all over you, essentially, little dots, but still I'm drawing all over you, and I'm measuring the exact point of where I'm going to, and that's going to be the same consistently throughout. So I think that's really important.
Goal for the week?
Goal for the week.
Doesn't have to always be work related.
No, yeah, I know.
Whatever.
Both of them are work related. Then they're going to be 2 very different. You make me feel like shit now, because you're like, I was seeing you when you came home.
It was not. You came with coffee, so that helped.
There you go. I think. Goal. Do you know what? Come back to me. I'll let you do your
Peek and pip.
peek and pip.
So my pit this week has been the regression in potty training for Jax.
Yeah.
Sleep's always bad, so can't have that as this week's pit particularly, because it's been the pit for the last 3 years of my life. Yeah, we've been potty training for about a month now, since just in between Christmas and New Year, and Jax was doing really well, no accidents. He was telling us when he needed to go, and then all of a sudden, we went to his first swimming lesson this week, and he weed in the car, and he didn't tell me, and I actually didn't know, because he had cream coloured joggers on, and you couldn't see. So it was only when I took him to the toilet and pulled his pants down, and I was like, "Why are you wet? What's happened?" I didn't even notice, and he never said anything, and he didn't walk funny, nothing, because sometimes he's got a habit of
cowboy.
Yeah, cowboy walking when he's got wet pants on, and that's now happened a handful of times in the last few days, and I'm like, what is going on? We were doing so well. And it's really hard, because we've been working really hard at it, and you feel like you're getting somewhere, and really proud of ourselves and of him, and yeah, I feel like we've took a step back, so that's been really difficult, I think, the last few days, because you feel a bit deflated.
Yeah. You want it to go in a
yeah, you want it just to go, and I know it does, and but I know regressions can happen. It's just annoying, because he was doing really well. So that's been the pit of my week.
I think it brings you a little bit of uncertainty as well.
Yeah, because I don't know, do I put him in a nappy now for the car? Because he's now weeding the car twice, and he never ever has done that before. Yeah, it's just not ideal. The peak of the week. It's the peak of the week. I feel like I should have thought about this earlier. I'm gonna just go with Jax's first swimming lesson back. He's not had lessons now for a year. Prior to that, he'd been going every week since he was 7 weeks old. And he was super confident in the water. And then we've not actually even took him swimming since we were on holiday in July, and it's nearly February now. But he was like so confident, so happy. He took to it like an actual duck to water. Like he was such a fish. He smashed the skills. I was like, oh my God, when he's 3, they like put them into a group where you don't go in the pool with them anymore. And I was worried that he wouldn't be able to catch up in time to do that. And there's just no way that boy will be swimming by the end of March.
It's crazy.
It's crazy. I was so proud. I was literally beaming. I was like, he weed in the car, but he was so good at swimming, so it's fine. Yeah, he absolutely crushed it. So yeah, very, very proud parent moment.
Oh, it's good. It's good.
Yep.
So what's your goal? Or do you want me to come back to me?
I'll go with my goal. So my goal is to train minimum 3 times, and I'd like to get 2 runs in. So 3 gym, 2 runs. I'd like to do better with my eating, because while we've all been poorly, this last week has been absolutely shocking on my diet. Because prior to that, I was really on it and I felt really good and I was moving really well. And yeah, the fluctuations in the postpartum journey, weight loss wise, and kind of getting back into fitness and stuff is not as straightforward as it comes. But I think we'll go on to postpartum fitness next week.
Oh, okay.
Because I feel like I could talk about that a lot.
Yeah, definitely.
So, yeah, do better, because I've eaten every single takeaway possible this week.
You completed
I've completed it, mate.
completed it.
I've absolutely completed it.
It's fine. It's fine. I feel like it's been a week, hasn't it? But it's good goals. Mine are similar. I want to go back to jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
And stay consistent with that. So that would be, by the time we next time we record, it would be 2 sessions.
Yeah.
So yeah, just to put a number on it, that's 2 sessions of jiu-jitsu. And then I think, or sorting out the garage gym, that's something I really want to sort out, because I feel like that's going to be a position for me to be able to use.
Obviously, it is there. It's just covered with all your shit.
Yes, I know. So I've got to literally and metaphorically sort my shit out. So yeah, those are the 2 things that I want to try and sort out.
I enjoyed that segment.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's good to reflect on the week.
Yeah.
And then project forward.
Yeah.
Those are things we probably should be doing anyway, but hey, we're going to do them on a podcast. It's fine.
Yeah. I think goal setting is good.
Yeah.
Because I think it helps you kind of stay on track, but without putting too much pressure on yourself. We're just telling the world about our goals. So however much pressure you feel for that. Because next week you sit here and go, I had another 4 takeaways this week, and I went to 0 classes this week. I've been on 0 runs.
People would probably like to see that. People would probably like, oh, yes, she's human.
Oh my God, the Chinese, they were so good.
Yeah, it was good. It was
so good. Anyway, let's continue. So breastfeeding. We put out a handful of question boxes on Instagram and polls and stuff. So we'll go through those as we go along. But I kind of wanted to talk about my breastfeeding journey to start with. Did you think I would breastfeed?
Yes and no. So I think going into it, I was kind of aware of the numbers of somewhat around the numbers anyway, of people that do and don't breastfeed and how successful it is. That made me doubt it slightly was the colostrum harvesting towards the end, and that being a big stress for you. But I think what was great was that you sort of drew a line under it at the time, and you just was like, you know what, I can't do it. It's stressing me out. I'm just not going to do it, because I think all the things you learn first time round when it's like it's liquid gold, it's so good for the baby. You feel that pressure to be
Yeah.
like, oh my God, well, I've got to do it. I've got to get it. I've got to, come on. And then obviously that's probably not going to help the situation. So at that point, I don't know how confident I was because in the early days of your breastfeeding, I remember crying when he fed from you for the first time properly.
Jax.
Yeah, Jax, because I was like so desperate for it to work
Yeah.
for you and obviously
So
for us.
in pregnancy, I'd kind of said I would like to breastfeed. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I didn't want to put too much pressure on myself the whole way through pregnancy. I knew the stats, so I'm going to read you the UK breastfeeding stats because it's actually crazy. So this was the UK-wide infant feeding survey, which was conducted in 2010. That was the last time they did it. And the key findings were that 81% of people started breastfeeding. And then by 6 weeks, exclusively breastfeeding was at 24% in England, 17% in Wales, 13% in Northern Ireland. Exclusively breastfeeding at 3 months had gone down to 17%. At 4 months was 12%. And at 6 months, which is what the World Health Organization recommends, is 1% of people are still breastfeeding at 6 months old in the UK. The rate of any breastfeeding, that's combi or whatever, not just exclusively breastfeeding, was at 55% at 6 weeks, while at 6 months it was 34%. So there was still 34% of babies having some sort of breast milk at 6 months, but exclusively breastfeeding was only at 1%.
Yeah, I remember when we first read those stats, we were just like, what on earth?
But I think that can kind of scare you into thinking, well, why? Why is that?
On,
Why are those stats at those stages beforehand? Because, like I said, I wanted to breastfeed. Again, I didn't know anybody that had breastfed because I didn't really know anybody that had babies before we had, and the people that I did know, I think had bottle fed, or that's all I'd ever been seen, really. I hadn't really overly noticed people feeding in public, or it wasn't really just on my radar, if I'm honest.
I think it's one of those things though where, you know, when you're like, you want to get a new car and you suddenly start to see that car everywhere. I think breastfeeding moms, you aren't really on the lookout for them unless you're a weirdo. um,
Yeah. So we did an NCT course, which is a charity that you can do courses through and meet people in your local area. We met an amazing bunch of people and we're still friends with them now. But on the course, we did a breastfeeding kind of workshop, and they were saying at around 36, 37 weeks, you can start trying to harvest colostrum. So your boobs may start leaking colostrum, which is the liquid gold that comes first. It's like the most rich milk. You will literally get like droplets. It's not like bottles. It's we're talking smidgens.
yeah, like 0.25 of a mil.
Smidgens. You get tiny little syringes and you hand express and suck it up the syringe. And
Sexy.
oh yeah, pregnancy is all sexy. And I just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And I tried and it was stressing me out, and I just could not harvest any colostrum before the baby was born. But to be fair, even after Jax was born, and Remy, I could not. I've never been able to hand express at all. It's just never worked for me. But yeah, I feel like that colostrum harvesting fiasco made me worry that it wouldn't work. But I will say now that had no impact on my breastfeeding journey. And from what I've learned, harvesting colostrum has no impact on whether you'll be able to breastfeed or not. So if you are at that point where you're trying to harvest colostrum and can't, like I couldn't, please don't let it put you off the fact that you might not be able to breastfeed. So try still, if you want to still try and breastfeed, definitely do that.
Yeah, I think there was another part of me, I suppose, as well, that thought, is it going to work? Because we struggled to get pregnant, and that sounds so silly. Like, we had IVF, and your body, it's from that point onwards, it's just a normal pregnancy, but you are treated slightly different anyway. But I don't know. This is part of me was just like, is it all gonna line up? And I think it's when you want something so bad. I suppose there is that part of you that doubts if it's going to work or not.
Mm.
But I think that a lot of the reasons why it's down to 1% at 6 months is around the support and the fact that it's really fucking hard to do for such a long period of time. Like,
It is
I've
so
witnessed you do it now
consuming.
twice, and what it takes from you to be able to breastfeed for 6 weeks, let alone 6 months and beyond, is just, you need a lot of support, and you need to be able to like have the right mentality, because it's going to take a lot from you. Like, being a parent takes a lot from you. Being a mom takes a lot from you. Even more so in the early days. So regardless of, like, I'm not saying that breastfeeding moms have it harder than bottle fed moms. That's just not what I'm saying. But there's that complete reliance on you for the food. Complete. Now, okay, you can pump, and that's great. But also, you have to be mindful of supply, and pumping too much, and how that can affect your supply. So it's complicated, and I think I reckon that's a lot. I mean, just guessing, I reckon that's a large percentage. I mean, look, it just drops off, doesn't it? It drops off a cliff.
I think as well, there's such a worry around the weight. So when your baby's born, I feel like we've skipped ahead a little bit, but when your baby's born, you'll go and have an appointment on day 5 where their baby will be reweighed. And that they'll kind of plot on the graph and make sure the baby's gaining enough weight. And generally, some breastfed babies don't gain as much back. They don't get up to their birth weight as fast as formula fed babies. I don't know whether that's the case for everybody, and I think jaundice is more present in breastfed babies as well. But again, I don't know what the stats are exactly on that, but that's been my experience with both, and they've both had breast milk jaundice, both of my boys. But yeah, when your baby's first born, your contractions are produced from the hormone oxytocin, which is your love hormone, and that's also what helps produce your breast milk. So the skin to skin contact, that initial skin to skin, as soon as a baby's born, is so important. And they put the baby on the boob kind of right away, just to kind of initiate that feeding, that bond, that safety, everything that you could kind of hope for in that moment. They help and encourage you with, if that's what you want. Even like some people say that, like, them getting that first bit of colostrum straight after birth, if that is all you give them, that's kind of still a really good thing. And whether you want to breastfeed or not, we did actually ask that question on our poll. You've got to just be confident in your choices and feel empowered and confident in that. And if you bottle feed, like formula feed, then that's great. Like, the baby's fed, and that is the most important thing. Breastfeeding is what we're talking about specifically. That's what I know about. That's what I have done personally. But it also doesn't work. There's going to be people out there that wanted to breastfeed and it hasn't quite gone that way for them for various reasons. There's support issues sometimes, from whether that be from partner at home, whether that be from your healthcare staff. I have heard, stories of healthcare professionals not providing the support that they should do. Most hospitals will have a infant feeding team that you'll be able to be in touch with. So if you do ever have any queries about that, there will be somebody that you can talk to. Just make sure you are asking for the right people, because there's going to be people that are more qualified to help you. There's then things like tongue tie or latch issues or various other things. You know, perhaps your supply doesn't come in. It could be so many things, and you just kind of have to like keep your fingers crossed and hope that, you know, you can do it if that's what you want to do. But yeah, Remy had a tongue tie and he was very sick, wasn't he? He was very sicky all the time. I'm like,
Yeah,
what is this?
I'm not used to
The
this.
latch hurt as well. And I was like, yeah, breastfeeding does hurt at the beginning. It's supposed to be a bit wincy for a few seconds. And then it's supposed to get comfortable. You're supposed to kind of feel pretty comfortable after that. But it isn't supposed to sting and hurt and feel like your nipples are chapped and bleeding and bruised all the time. That is not right. If you're feeling like that, please go and seek help. And because Remy was my second, I kind of knew what I was looking out for. And there's questions in me that question, did I do enough for Jax? Was there issues that I missed because I didn't know what I was talking about or wasn't supported enough? Was I not asking the right questions? Because although Jax wasn't sicky, he was never comfortable, and he cried a lot, and he acted like he was in a lot of pain. I don't know whether he had a minor tongue tie and that was affecting his reflux and in his stomach. He did have osteopath treatment down the line, but knowledge comes with experience, and I felt really empowered in my decisions and my knowledge the second time round, which is why I want to talk about it more, because I wish I would have known more what the signs
Yeah, you feel
for
like you don't
things.
want to rock the boat early as well. You're like, am I being dramatic? Like, am I worrying too much?
Yeah.
But actually, it's really important to like ask those questions and get like that clarity. I mean, you know, he's feeling great now and he does go down better. I mean, he's struggling a bit lately, but he goes down better than
Remy.
Jax. Yeah.
So Remy had a tongue tie, and we went to see a private consultant who assessed his tongue tie and actually released it at the time. He was 70% tongue tied, and we had it done when he was 2 weeks old. It wasn't a nice procedure,
Oh, no, that was not fun.
but honestly, it's improved both of our experiences so much. He feeds so well now. It's always comfortable for me. He's stopped being a sickie. Yeah, it's changed everything completely, and I would just be aware of like that tongue tie is a thing, and if you're worried, definitely like seek advice.
Yeah. It's it's quite a hard experience to go through, them having it done, but it's really quick. And what's brilliant is that like breast milk, you know, getting on
It's
the
the
boob
healer.
is the healer, and it helped massively. Like it was healed so quickly, and he was happy straight away. Like he wasn't crying all night. It wasn't like a thing that we had to go home and deal with. I mean, I don't know what other people's experiences are like with it, but generally, I think it's one of those things where they just recover quite quickly, and then obviously you have to do exercises over the next 2 weeks with them. But it's definitely been worthwhile for sure. For sure.
Mm. Yeah. So I'm just really like glad I could breastfeed, although there are some downsides, I'd say. Downsides. Yeah. It's good and bad, isn't it? Like I get this amazing gift that I can give to the boys. I breastfed Jax until he was 9 months old, and I only stopped with him because he was biting when he was teething. He was teething really bad, and he would bite me, and I didn't like it, and I kind of ended it. He wasn't really feeding that much by then. He was eating really well, and various other things. But we did go on to formula at the very end. He'd not had formula at that point beforehand. He had expressed breast milk when we'd been away. I'd kind of pumped and got a store in the freezer. But yeah, by 9 months, I had to call it a day because of the biting, and Remy's nearly 4 months old, and again, he is exclusively breastfed still. It's amazing because I get this bond and this closeness with them, but it's also a bitch because I have to be the one that feeds them all the time. It's on me, and I'm the one that settles them. I'm the one that they need, I'm the one that if I'm not here, I'm the one that has to pump. You could give them a bottle, but my boobs are still screaming for them. And that's a really tough thing. So even if you want to break, quotation marks,
You're still pumping.
you're still pumping, you're still thinking of them, you're still thinking, well, if my boobs are this full now, is my baby being fed? Is it, your body's still giving you kind of signs that should be what you're doing. So it is tough because you have got this responsibility on you that you've got to feed them and you have to be there all the time or pumping or whatever to sustain life. And that being said, how amazing and magical is that?
Yeah, it's incredible. It is incredible. I think, but going back to what you said about like the difficulties of it,
Yeah.
because you go from like not having to do that, like having complete freedom.
Which is wild because obviously I breastfed Jax. Then I had like a year, just over a year with no breastfeeding.
Right.
And then I got pregnant again.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah.
So I had a year of like normal life with no pregnancy, no breastfeeding. Jax was at a really good, like self-sustained age, really. My life was together as it could be at that point of being a mom of one. And then like, I feel like, whoa, a tidal wave has hit me because I'm then pregnant with a toddler. I'm then breastfeeding a newborn with a toddler.
That's
my
good.
life is wild. Like there's so much. It's so different this time around having a toddler and breastfeeding because you kind of have to like almost explain to them why you can't go to them, why you can't. I can't play with you right now because Remy's having his milk. Remy needs his milk, and this happens. Remy needs his milk every hour. Sorry, Jax. And you know what? He's been amazing. And he's never, been nasty or mean or anything. He's kind of more like, is that your boobies? Is that your booby milk? Yeah. Yeah. And that's it, not made a deal about it really, or, I'm quite comfortable with it and he hasn't, because I've not been too prudish or too like sensitive about it, I guess. I don't know what the right phrasing is, but he hasn't then made a deal about it. It's
No,
just been like,
very
oh, it's just normal.
Yeah.
Remy's having his milk, that's it.
Yeah.
End of story. He just doesn't bat an eyelid at it, does he? Whereas like when I was breastfeeding Jax, you would I'd just sit there. Do you know what I mean? I didn't have anything else to think about. I was just feeding him. If that took 45 minutes, then it took 45 minutes. I got nowhere else to be. And that's the amazing thing about being a first-time mom is like that you get to do it all on your own timing, on their timing. You've got no rush in the world. Soak it up if that's what you're going through, because it is just incredible. Like thinking back to those stages, and I remember being like, I remember not feeling so relaxed. I remember thinking I should be doing more or whatever. But in hindsight now, looking back, what an amazing thing to be able to just sit and soak it all up. Because sometimes I look at Remy and go, I'm not having enough time with you because I'm now splitting my time between you both.
Yeah.
And, yeah, but it's really hard. It's incredible, but, the mom guilt gets you. But yeah, the other thing I was going to talk about was like how it affects you hunger wise. And then we'll go on to talk about like weight loss and nutrition around breastfeeding as well. So hunger and breastfeeding, that's a real thing. And thirst, wow. Never felt thirst quite like it. The end of pregnancy and breastfeeding are the most thirsty moments of my life. If you breastfeed, make sure you get a massive drinks bottle and always have it nearby when you're feeding. Some people like to have snacks nearby. I've had two different experiences when it comes to hunger and breastfeeding. I felt I was more hungry with Jax than I was with Remy. That's because I've had more control throughout my life with Remy than I had with Jax. I'd probably eat a packet of Oreos a day with Jax.
Yeah.
Every time I was feeding, even in the night, I would like grab a biscuit and a water, whatever. And that was just kind of like what I did. But I have tried not to do that with Remy.
It was habitual.
It got to habitual in the end.
Yeah. And obviously, like,
But I never started that with Remy. Do you know what I
the
mean?
hunger's there. But I think you went into breastfeeding Remy and been like, I'm not going to do that. Like, you were conscious going into it. And I think that helped frame it. Obviously, if the hunger was there, that's a different issue. But
So the issue was the thoughts I was probably having subconsciously, consciously, I don't know. I gained another stone ish. I can't remember the exact numbers, but post Jack's being born. So obviously I'd lost that initial drop, but then I'd gained over that 9 months of breastfeeding another stone. Breastfeeding marks is what people say. Oh, you're breastfeeding? Wow, the weight's going to just drop off. But what people don't realise is it just makes you hungry. When your body is using calories, that usually presents in hunger.
yeah. Yeah.
Meaning your body either needs them or you're doing more than what you're used to, so your body's screaming at you in a certain way.
I think the messaging around it was, you burn an extra 500 calories a day. That's gonna.
It's so specific. Like the numbers on the internet is like you're burning between 500 and 700 calories per day when you're breastfeeding.
Yeah, yeah. Like, you can't. I think the difficulty is like a government again. We're talking about BMI, where it's like you need to give that blanket advice because you maybe can't give individualized advice, but you should be able to caveat it with being able to say like it does depend person to person. It's not 500 calories for everyone, and also like having sort of a discussion around. Well, okay, you're going to be more sedentary. You're
Yeah,
going to be you're
because
going to
you're
be sat
sitting.
you sat
Yeah,
down. You're going to be sleep deprived. So first of all, you're not going to burn as many calories because you sat down. Okay, yes, you might be burning more producing the milk, but if you weren't breastfeeding, you'd be walking around, getting your knee up and burning more calories. You might even be burning more calories pre-breastfeeding than you were, especially as a pregnant woman. You're walking around with all the weight.
heavier. Yeah,
You're a heavier person. It takes more to walk around as a heavier person. It takes more energy to do that.
yeah,
It's like having it's just thinking about it. Like when you understand energy and energy out, which I know it's not just as simple as that, but that's the underlying mechanism, thermodynamics. If you get that, then thinking, okay, you're moving less because you sat down. Your sleep is all over the place, and what happens when your sleep's all over the place? Your hormones get fucked. Your leptin, which is great for satiety, falls through the floor. So you then ghrelin comes out of nowhere. You're more hungry.
yeah,
So, and that doesn't happen for everybody. Like for some women, they don't gain weight. They might lose weight
yeah,
and they don't have to do a lot.
yeah,
Again, those things as well could be genetics.
yeah,
Everyone starts on a different playing field. We talked about this at the start in episode 1 where like, my genetics versus your genetics. Your genetics as a woman next to somebody else, another breastfeeding mom, totally different.
yeah.
When we talk about bouncing back, which again, terminology that isn't great,
No,
that's going to be totally different woman to woman.
yeah,
And just trying to, first of all, if you're going through it, like give yourself a break. There's not. It's a really difficult but amazing thing that you're doing. It's incredible, but understanding that you're not gonna just suddenly, but you might, but in general, you're not gonna suddenly like drop the weight off because there are other things at play that will sort of maybe tip the scale the other way. Like we said, your
yeah.
hunger's gonna go up, your mood's gonna be all over the place. If sleep isn't good for you, which it wasn't for us,
Still,
you're going to be going for the biscuits. You're not going to be going for the biscuits, but if you
you're
don't
going for
have,
quick. Like you're after convenience,
yeah,
and if you aren't prepped or supported in prepping, or the quickest thing ain't always to chop bleeding carrot sticks and get the hummus out.
No.
Do you know what I mean? It's to grab a crisps or grab the biscuit or
Yeah.
grab a rice cake, whatever what literally, if your baby's screaming at you, you ain't spending 20 minutes prepping a snack.
Yeah.
You're getting you're just grabbing what you've got. And what I've done this time is to try and be more organised in that. And you have to just do what you can. And I think that's what you've got to take out of this is like, especially at the beginning, you are just focusing on surviving.
Yeah.
You're focusing on, oh my God, you're all over the place. I've got a new baby. I don't know what they want. I don't know what to do. There's so much going on. Are they okay? Are they getting enough milk? Are they this? Are they putting on enough weight? Blah, 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 blah. There's so much that you're worried about as a new parent anyway. And then you have to think about, oh, fucking hell, what kind of snack am I going to have while I'm breastfeeding? Because I might gain weight.
Yeah.
Like, but I'm breastfeeding, so I'm going to drop the weight. And then you've given this false information, or like there's stats around it and the studies on it are so, they're actually not true.
Yeah.
Like there was one that suggests that breastfeeding women that breastfeed have a slightly higher chance of losing weight over years. But it's like, oh, they're a kilo less in 5 years' time.
Yeah.
It's not like it's just one of those things. It's not like, oh yeah, they did it in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Because they were burning 500 calories a day. It's a load of rubbish. And there's these numbers. Oh, your milk supply will go down if you eat less than 1,800 calories a day. What does that look like for people? Like, your 1,800 calories for me at a certain period in my life would have made me gain weight.
Yeah.
That would have pushed me over the edge with regards to like my BMR, and I think you've got to be smart about numbers. Like my numbers, my BMR, so what I'm burning, what I need to sustain my weight, what I need to lose weight, my specific numbers are different to everybody else's numbers.
Yeah.
So how can the government cherry pick one special number, 1,800, and these 500 to 700 calories, these random numbers out of thin air, and we're all going, oh, well, that's going to be it then, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
1,800 calories it is, guys. No, perhaps not.
Yeah.
The most important thing when breastfeeding to keep up milk supply specifically is hydration and sleep.
Yeah. That's it.
That's literally it. You can be in a deficit. You can exercise when pregnant, when breastfeeding, sorry. You can do these things safely and keep your milk supply up if you are staying on top of your hydration and if you're staying on top of as much rest as you possibly can get.
Yeah. Those are the two like big take homes that you should take away from this without a doubt. I think that when it comes to like calories and things like that, like trying to work out my calories and, oh my God, am I going to lose my supply, this, that, and the other? There are people around the world that don't have the luxury of going, I'm going to eat an extra 500 calories than I was eating previously, and they've done fine.
Yeah.
We live in a world where it's so easy to get calories. It's like the easiest thing to do.
Yeah.
So it's not to say like, oh my God, starve yourself, but
I definitely wouldn't recommend aggressive dieting.
No,
this phase. You aren't going to want to.
No,
you aren't going to feel like it. Like, trust me, I've tried dropping into a deficit recently, and it's tougher than ever right now to do it. While breastfeeding, and obviously while sleep, so absolutely shocking. But you have to just do what's in your comfort house at this phase in your life. This phase isn't going to last forever, and you aren't going to feel like you're in the depths forever. So if you're just surviving, if you're just, I'm going to lower my calories a little bit and just see how that makes me feel, you have to go on what makes you feel good. And with regards to milk supply, the biggest things you want to be looking out for, if you think your milk supply is drying up, is keeping an eye on output of nappies. So making sure that baby's still having the same amount of wet nappies, same amount of dirty nappies. And the other thing is the weight of the baby. So make sure the weight's gradually increasing. If you're worried about any of these things, please speak to your midwife or health visitor, whoever you're under the care of at the time. But yeah, those are the two things you want to be keeping a lookout for, because your boobs may not always feel engorged. That doesn't mean that there's no milk there. Milk is produced when the baby's latched already. So your boobs could feel empty, but as soon as baby goes on, you'll have this. You could have, some people get like letdown pains. I I can get them, and they come from like your armpits and kind of shoot down through all the nodes. Such a strange feeling when the milk's coming in, and yeah, it's kind of produced as and when, because you'll find sometimes that your letdown will be stronger than others. Yeah, you'll find that some days you don't feel like you've got any milk in your boobs, but then as soon as your baby's feeding, you're finding, they're fed, they're swallowing, they're getting the milk. So don't always take those sorts of things for granted, or for like Bible kind of thing. Everyone's experience is going to be different with this. So if something works for one person, it might not work for another person. Yeah, we're just giving our experience and just trying to give some tips out on this. Like we say, if you are after some expert advice, definitely infant feeding team or a lactation consultant will probably be the most knowledgeable on certain things, but please don't let them tell you you can't eat under 1800 calories, because that is incorrect information.
Yeah, I think second time round for you as well, like you're making more informed decisions based on just having more knowledge as time's gone on. And I think the only kind of like, not like give a recipe, meal plan sort of thing for people now, but I think the best thing you can do, like anything, is try and like keep your protein intake. I don't want to become like the protein podcast, but like
That's our new name.
try and keep it. We can put. I mean, I feel like I want to do like a video on sort of like on protein and just like what kind of intake people should be looking for, just to sort of help people with that.
Yeah.
But keeping that higher is going to help with satiety, and then trying to eat variety where you can.
Yeah.
Those things are going to play a massive role in how you feel. Your mood's going to dip in and out when it comes to breastfeeding. Hormones all over the shop. Sleep, we keep saying about sleep. That's such a big thing. But obviously, sometimes it's learning to accept the situation of where you're at, and I think that's really hard sometimes, because you want to be in the best position. You want to, right, I'm 3 months postpartum. I'm gonna take this, fitness journey. I'm gonna go, and it's probably going to feel quite stop start, because the baby gets ill, or and that affects sleep. Like those things are going to play a massive role, and it's like understanding where you're at in your life and saying, I'm not sitting here going, well, don't try, because there are going to be people listening to this that need to know that it's okay,
Yeah.
that then they don't have to be on a diet, and they don't have to, worry about XYZ that we've spoke about just. But there's also going to be women out there that, similar to you, that are like, well, I need to get going. Like, this is something that I know that makes me happy.
Yeah.
And I like to work towards a goal. And again, it's for those people to say, that's great, you can do that, it's safe.
Yeah.
But also, it is going to be, up and down. You're not going to be able to train every single day that you want to train.
Yeah.
Something's going to happen, or like you just lose
the
motivation.
amount of times I've had to feed Remy in the gym already.
Yeah.
Because breastfed babies eat on demand.
They do.
And yeah, that demand is frequent. They're ringing their little bell. Ding, ling, 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 ling. I'm ready. And it happens often.
Yeah.
And like the length of those feeds vary, but like cluster feeding, where they feel like they're on the boob all the time in a 24-hour period, when they go through growth and development phases, there's various things. But then there's things like feeding in public, like I said about feeding in the gym. So we did a poll on this, did you / would you feel confident feeding in public? 70% said yes, which I'm really, really happy to hear. And 30% said no. And that's sad because obviously that's either then going to stop you feeding your baby in public or it's going to stop you leaving the house, which could then make you more sedentary, which is then going to affect your mental health. There's so many things that are then contributing to this. This could even put people off breastfeeding at all. You know, you're thinking, oh God, I'm going to have to get my boob out in public, whatever. I feel so much more confident with feeding in public or feeding in front of people, whether that be, you know, at our houses or, you know, in front of friends, family, whatever. I feel zero way the second time round compared to the first time round. The first time round, I almost felt like I was kind of waiting for people to be looking at me, or to like catch like a glimpse of someone being like, oh, this is or me looking for signs of people acting awkward around me because of me feeding. And I was I felt like I was on the lookout for those sorts of things in the first time, because then it's like, oh God, I'm making them feel uncomfortable, which is then making me feel uncomfortable, and I don't know what to do, you know. Whereas the second time, I've been so comfortable. I feel like I got comfortable throughout my journey with Jax, definitely. But at the beginning, like I had to feed him in a busy pub on a Friday night. The first time, it was probably stupid of us to go out on a Friday night with our friends into the pub, but we were just trying to keep up with the normal lifestyle. Yeah, that was awful for me.
I think the key point here though with that is reps. You got your reps in.
Yeah,
Like it's like anything, and obviously
exposure.
I don't know what it's like to breastfeed and like having to do that in public, but the only way I can equate it to is just like repeated exposure to something.
Yeah.
So like really it must be such a mental barrier to get over. And actually, you know, a lot of people cover, and you did sometimes cover as well, comfort, or they'll go into a separate room when they're maybe at someone's house or something like that. And those things are totally fine. Like you haven't got to get to the stage where you're really comfortable. However, if you can, it does free up your life that little bit more.
Yeah.
And you're the kind of person that, I mean, you love a challenge anyway. And like, I knew it was something you wanted to do. You're like, I want to be comfortable. I hate that I'm not. I hate that I'm not comfortable. So, what did you do? You pushed yourself into that situation,
did it anyway.
and you know, got the reps in to the point now where it's like you just are so carefree, and that like as a partner as well, because when you first started breastfeeding Jax, I was very much like trying to get get a muslin and make sure you were covered and make sure you're all right. You're all right, yeah. Like I was worried for you. I mean, classic me, but like I was worried as well, and I was worried.
But were you worried because I was worried?
Probably a little bit, but I probably would have been worried anyway. But then also I was just like, yeah, nobody best be staring at my wife. Like, no, I'm joking. I think I did feel conscious because I was like, I was then looking at it because you were. Well, the great thing obviously is like you're trying to like focus on Jax or Remy and getting the latch right, which again, that's a stressful thing. And the bobbing, like, do you want to talk about the bobbing, like in public, like when they're bobbing the head off in you first, like, but like when you first obviously breastfeeding in public and they're like heads moving right away and you're like fully, because obviously, you know, you're fully exposed at that point. Because
they come off, they like, are they on? Am I on? Am I off? Am I off? Am I on? Am I off?
Yeah.
And then they get to an age where they're like, then looking around, they're like,
somebody
what's
say what?
going over there?
Yeah.
Let's go again.
Yeah.
What's going on over there? You tell I've heard that noise quite a lot of times.
Pretty accurate. You've nailed it. Yeah, I think that, like I say, just getting your reps in, but like making that as a partner, that made me feel more comfortable.
You kind of get good at kind of using their bodies as a shield.
Yeah.
I like the cradle position best, which is probably, I think it's like the most common position, but I know the rugby hold is quite a good one for latch as well, but I never got on well with that. But yeah, again, this is something you can find up. There's a couple of pages on Instagram that are really good for this sort of stuff. And again, your lactation consultants. But yeah, feeling comfortable feeding outside the house is huge when it comes to breastfeeding. Also, a challenge is eating and breastfeeding at the same time, which I feel like I've mastered. But I have lost a few muslins to dropping food on it.
Yeah.
Better than Remy's clothes, but you know. it is what it is. Oh, did you feel supported in your experience? So 55% said yes and 45% said no, and that's really sad.
Yeah.
And I wonder whether that's from partners, family, or whether that's from like healthcare professionals.
I mean, it's definitely going to be from all three. I just wonder which way it sways in terms of percentage of those people. It's really hard because naturally, there's like, first of all, I think about healthcare professionals just because of the stories we've heard from people we know.
Yeah.
But then also, I do think about the partners. If you're not like overly invested in that situation, it's like, oh, that's your thing, like whatever. Like
Yeah, can't come.
I'll do the nappies, like whatever. Like you sort it out. But if you should like I said at the start, like I remember like genuinely crying when he fed from you that first time.
Yeah.
Because in fact, you know what, it might have not been the first time. I think it was when you got back home and we're really desperate for him to like feed because we were worried, and like when he'd lost a lot of weight, which we were talking about earlier, and we were trying to get him back up to the weight, and he was jaundiced, and those things they say, you know, getting breastfeeding, doing those things, you're conscious and you want it to work and you really like desperately want it to work. And I just remember being
Yeah.
like feeling like quite emotional at that moment that it did work. So I was like massively invested, and I'm hoping that partners feel that way. But if you're a guy that like is watching this, when it comes to any aspect of the journey, whether it be trying to conceive, you know, pregnancy and then being a dad, be as involved as you possibly can because it's going to make you feel more comfortable.
Yeah.
Ask as many questions, like be vulnerable,
Yeah.
act stupid if you have to, like be the dumbest person in the room, which is not a difficult thing for me. You know, you have to really want to do it, and it's going to make such a massive difference to the mom in that situation for sure.
Definitely. And on that, we had put a question box out for people to offer their advice. Oh, advice for breastfeeding mamas / partners of. So we've got partners. Make sure mamas have all the snacks and drinks during cluster feeding sessions. So again, you were always really good at like filling my water up. Still are now. Fill my water up. Grab me a snack if I need anything, or bring my dinner to me, whatever it is. But yeah, definitely make sure if your partner sat down for quite long periods of time, make sure that they've got everything they need. Definitely that. Be patient. It takes time to get it right. It takes time to learn. That's what somebody's put. And definitely when we went to see the lactation consultant who did Remy's tongue tie, she was saying how you could help with the positioning and just making sure like we were lined up properly, because you could be standing kind of face on. You can see then if he was level, if he was over enough, if he was in the right position, and then kind of like you could almost push him into me as well, because you kind of need that belly to belly contact. But again, that's really hard to see from kind of you as the mom positioning wise. So if your partner can stand in front of you and kind of help you out in that respect too, that's something really helpful and important job for them.
I think it's really hard because like if you're first time mom, if you both don't know what you're doing,
Yeah,
I
definitely.
think that's really hard because you're both like, well, help me. And it's like, well, how the fuck do I help you?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. But I think, yeah, if you can get that information beforehand, it's really hard. Like in the later stages of pregnancy, I think as a guy, you can probably feel like, still feel detached.
Yeah.
But those are the conversations that you should be having. You try to have them, you know, try and get the guy involved, watch a video on it maybe,
Yeah.
and just sort of prepping each other to know that you've got to be there for each other to support, because it is really important. Like those early stages, clearly, we said the stats at the start
Yeah.
and how much they drop off,
Yeah.
and it's clear that we know it's tough. It's
Yeah.
not easy, and you're going to need that support.
Definitely. That's what someone else has put here. Try and get through the first few weeks very hard. First few weeks very hard, as then it's so much easier, and then it's so much easier and so worth it. Someone else has put, partners need to understand it's a full-time job to breastfeed and so exhausting. Must be hard to understand what the mom has done all day.
Because you
I went
sometimes
at home from work and it looks like they've done nothing besides chilled and watch Netflix. So it is true, because I'm kind of like, you've come home, the house is a shithole, just as we left it this morning. But this baby has been feeding on me for 20 hours today. And you're just kind of doing what you have to do. Did you know it was going to be as intense and as time consuming and energy consuming as it was.
No. I mean, I was completely clueless going into it. Like, obviously, done the NCT course and stuff like that, and they talk about feeds and things like that, which was great. But until you're like living the life and it's actually your life and like your situation, you know, because everyone's situation is different.
Yeah.
You don't really know what it's going to be like. But I still to this day, like, I fully respect that you get anything done. Like,
Yeah.
when how you get anything done, in my opinion, is crazy. And it's really important. Actually, people talk about like a full time job, and I know that like if you were to work out the amount of hours you're sat there breastfeeding, completely, really not stuck. You know what I mean? You're not going to be able to achieve much,
Yeah.
even though you have done some things whilst breastfeeding.
Yeah.
Um, it's one of those where it's more than 40 hours a week or whatever, you know, full time job.
Yeah.
It is. And it's a really important one. So we're a team. We're a team and we need to support each other. It's our eldest trying to get off the bed.
Is that up?
That's always good. This is we never could have recorded this podcast until now. Like, even now it's a difficult thing to do. But the amount of times like we would have had to go up for Jax back in the day. Thanks. Oh, he's calling for you. Trying to go.
So yeah, the last few things is basically make sure you have everything you need when you're sitting down to feed. If it's gone for long periods of time, make sure you've got your remote, make sure you've had a wee first, make sure you've got your phone, make sure you've got everything you need. That's definitely a really good one. But yeah, it's a really magical thing if you feel like it's for you, if you want to stick to it. There's so many health benefits and various other things for you and the baby, which we won't go into too much. But yeah, there's so much useful content online and so much other things when it comes to breastfeeding. This has just been our journey and our tips and advice.
I think that's our cue to go. The eldest has got off. Oh, yep. She might not be coming back. The joys. Yeah, we never would have been able to before. I mean, sleep's really bad right now, but it was terrible before. And we would have just been like in and out, in and out. So, yeah. We really hope you enjoyed that episode. I know that we could have gone into more information when it comes to the benefits, the health benefits when it comes to breastfeeding, and the benefits for both, like Nick just said, like the both benefits for the mom and the baby. But we've done a long episode there. But I've enjoyed it, really enjoyed it. I think it's been good to talk from like both sides, as we always do. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed it too. Please make sure you're subscribed on YouTube, following us on Apple Podcast and on Spotify. And if you could leave us a rating, that would be amazing. And we will see you on the next one.